Okay, so it's another slightly sad day because this is my last ride on my XSR 900, and once again I'm in Newcastle and I'm going to be picking up a new bike in about 10 minutes time. I've loved the XSR, but I thought it was time for a change, and I'm going to go for a 4-cylinder bike, and I haven't had a 4-cylinder bike for ages. So yes, I've swapped my Yamaha XSR 900 for this gorgeous lump of green Kawasaki loveliness. I mean, oh my God, just look at the thing. So I'm about 200 miles in. Of course, I'm in the honeymoon period, but I've got to say, Z900RS, oh my God, what a bike. It's green and it's gorgeous, and it whooshes along and it's like a magic carpet. So at the moment, totally loving it, but more to come. Okay then, so onto the fit and finish. I know it's been said a million times before, but the paintwork on the bike is totally delicious. You know, it's about 1,000,000 miles deep, and got a beautiful metal flake on it, especially on the green one that I've got. You know, and that quality of fitting also kind of reflects on all the other parts of the bike, so the exhaust, the engine, the cycle parts, etc. All of which, you know, are fabulously well finished, and it kind of almost looks like a special. Okay, on to other bits and pieces of the bike that I didn't really do much video on. But first one, the clutch. Well, the clutch is super light, really easy to use, no fatigue whatsoever. The bike itself is nicely balanced, so it's dead easy to push around. And then the clocks, don't know about you, but I'm sick of staring at screens all day, and not having an iPad fronted to the bike suits me perfectly. Okay, so the suspension. What's the best way of describing the suspension? It's really controlled, it's really plush, but it's not bouncy either, so it feels to me like it's pretty high quality suspension. It's got lots of really nice damping, and you know, it's just a lovely plush ride. It can handle sharp edge bumps really well. As well as, you know, the kind of more kind of deeper bumps as well. It's just very controlled ride, and I never feel as though, you know, if I go around corners and I come across something unexpected, that I'm going to get into trouble. So it gives me a lot of confidence that you know, it just stays on line. I'm not going to get bumped out of the seat, and it can handle pretty much anything. And that's in stark contrast to the XSR 900, where I never quite got the suspension dialed in. Always felt a little bit nervous, but the suspension on this, you know, is plush, it's lovely, it's controlled, and just gives a really nice, comfortable ride, but at the same time it's very controlled. So suspension, I've got no complaints whatsoever about it. It really does ride beautifully. Hello, so it's the 13th of June, first thing in the morning, and I'm here at Bamburgh Castle. So I'm kind of hoping that we might sort of bump into Harrison Ford, you know, like running along the beach or something, because he's filming over at Bamburgh at the moment for Indiana Jones #5, so looking forward to seeing that. There's like loads of German tanks and stuff and things flying around, which you don't often see in Northumberland, but anyway, so it's quite exciting. So if Harrison Ford does wander past, you know, hello Mr. Ford, nice to see you. Anyway, so onto the engine. Yeah, best way to describe the engine is whoosh-tastic. It's like a turbine, loads and loads of power from down below. I mean, you can pull fifth gear at 2,500 revs, and it just doesn't bother at all. Any gear, it'll go. I mean, it's not as exciting and as mad as the XSR 900, but it's beautiful, it's linear, it's kind of creamy and lovely, totally whoosh-tastic. So a fabulous engine. I know there's been a few complaints about the low speed fueling, you know, particularly when you're sort of in second gear and you're trying to pootle around town. Sure, you know, it can be a little bit snatchy. It's got that kind of Euro 5 super lean feeling that you get these days. But, you know, is it a problem? Well, you learn to ride round it, don't you? Feather it on the clutch or choose a different gear. It's not really a problem. Sure, I wish it didn't do it, but you know, in the overall scheme of things, you know, it's a little bit like complaining about the size of your spoon when you're eating soup. It's not really that big deal, because overall the engine is totally brilliant, totally whoosh-tastic. And I should mention the sound, and we'll have a little clip of the sound in a tick. I should mention the sound. It's really deep and rumbly, and I'm pretty sure it pops a little bit on the overrun as well, you know, which just adds to the sense of aural delight. And that was oral, as in A-U. Won't go there. But yeah, 10 out of 10 for the engine, really brilliant. I should also say I was a little bit nervous about getting a 4-cylinder bike, because I get white finger a lot from vibration. This thing, any speed, any revs, it doesn't vibrate. It's just totally smooth and great, and you can tell because the mirrors stay crystal clear regardless of the speed and the revs. So 10 out of 10 for the engine. It's whoosh-tastic. It's a turbine, so I'm just going to go and see if I can find Harrison Ford and say hello. Okay, so is the Kawasaki Z900RS purely an exercise in nostalgia? Well, I suppose it is from a styling perspective, although it's not kind of part of my history, you know, because 38 years ago when I was 17, I was crawling all over that, and that is Torness Nuclear Power Station, you know, and that was in the early 80s, and you won't believe it, I had hair like David Coverdale and looked like Jim Morrison, and I had a Suzuki GP100, and Kawasaki, and certainly the Kawasaki Z1 was already an old bike by the time I was getting into bikes in the early 80s. I wanted, you know, I was after a GP Z550, which I eventually got, and then I swapped it for a GP Z900. Can you believe it? 19 years old on a GP Z900. Yeah, so it's not really part of my nostalgia, and that's not why I bought it. I was just after an easygoing yet fast bike, a comfortable bike, but one that was still capable of doing some slightly sporty stuff, and one that could handle really bumpy roads and was like neutral in handling, and this is exactly what this bike is compared to the XSR 900. You know, it's kind of like the slightly more sensible uncle as opposed to the wayward nephew. And the XSR 900 is a brilliant bike, and I'm not slagging it off. It was just always felt just a little bit nervous on bumpy roads, of which there are zillions around here. Always felt as though it was riding on overinflated tyres. This one kind of feels glued to the road, feels very stable, and I am very confident in riding it on unfamiliar bumpy roads, you know, which is a great thing. And it looks good, and it sounds good, and it's got a big tank. You know, it'll do about 170 miles to the tank. I'm finding the seat really, really comfortable. And for a 4-cylinder bike, it can cruise as well as howl, which can only be a good thing. So yeah, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And I kind of overlooked it when it first came out, and I'm sort of sad that I did, because I wish I'd had it 2 years ago now. It's got that feeling, and I know I've said this before, and I know I'm fickle, but it's got that feeling of being a keeper. It's just beautiful to ride, and it's easy to ride, but it'll still go like stink when you want it to do. So yeah, really nice bike, really loving it. 4 weeks in, I've done 1,000 miles, maybe that says something. And yeah, and I like and for me, I've also got a Moto Guzzi V7, and I really like the differences between them. I mean, you could call them both retro bikes, but when I get off this, which is like a nuclear power station, and get onto the Moto Guzzi, it's a V7. When I get onto the Guzzi, it's like getting, you know, it's like driving a steam engine. You know, I just love that difference, even though it does take me some time to sort of recalibrate my senses to them both. So yeah, it's a beautiful bike. It's a lovely bike. I love riding it. And it does the petrol station thing as well. You know, when you're walking back to the bike after you filled it up with petrol, and you go, oh my God, that's my bike. I'm going to be riding it. How cool is that? So yeah, I'm kind of quite overjoyed, really. Yeah, it's a beautiful bike. More to come. Kawasaki Z900RS from Torness Power Station, where I was 17 years old as an apprentice. Used to get extremely drunk in Dunbar every single night, and then yeah, wire up computers, which is a bit worrying, but you know, it seems to be working out all right. Yeah, so from Torness Power Station, cheery bye. Now, I'm not really sure what a bad boy bacon is, but I'm not sure if I like the sound of it anyway, whatever it is. So, that is the pinnacle of Epicurean dining at the English-Scottish border. Addy's Diner. What a classic. So I think, to be honest with you, I'm going to get on my bike and go somewhere else really, I think.